Hello, EduMagicians. Welcome to the EduMagic podcast with your host, Dr. Sam Fessich. Dr. Sam is a professor of education, author of EduMagic, and a pumpkin spice latte fan. This podcast is designed for pre-service teachers. Remember, friends, teaching doesn't begin at graduation, but during that first class at 8 a.m. Let's get this party started.
Hey EduMagicians, welcome to episode 29 of the EduMagic podcast. During this episode, I interview Hannah Turk, a co-author of EduMagic Shine On, a guide for new teachers. This book was co-written by Hannah Turk, Hannah Sansom, Katie Gibson, and myself. It has checklists, reflection pieces, and great stories to help you grow and learn during your first year teaching. Hope you enjoy our conversation. Let's listen in.
Hi, I'm Heather Monthy from the About the Tea and STEM podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of the EduMagic podcast. I am joined today with a super special guest. I am so excited to have Hannah Turk join me today on this show. I'm going to do a quick intro of who Hannah is. In case you don't remember, I talk about Hannah a lot on the show, and she's also in EduMagic. Hannah is an amazing friend, and we met actually at Grove City College. She was a TA of mine, I want to say for 2 years, maybe one, but it felt like longer. So, and then Hannah and I, after graduation, we got on like the Sam and Hannah first name basis and became good friends. And now 3-4 years later, we're still in touch. And we actually co-wrote a book together with two other authors, Katie Gibson and Hannah Sansom, who'll be joining later on in the month for the EduMagic podcast. Hannah, could you mind introducing yourself a little bit and telling us a little bit about your teaching story? What inspired you to become an educator?
Yeah, sure. That was a great intro, by the way. I like how friendship was the big thing that brought us together, I feel like. I am now a stay-at-home mom. I taught first grade for 1 year for my first year. I taught first grade in Northern Virginia. And then I got pregnant my first year of teaching. I got married when we graduated, then started teaching, then got pregnant, and then had my daughter actually on the very last day of school. So I didn't even technically finish my first year of teaching, those last 3 hours. And now I stay home. I'm expecting our second soon. So I am giving birth to a book and a child this month. Background of my teaching story, what inspired me to be a teacher? I feel I'm the oldest of four. There's the three of us at the top. We're all 3 years apart. And then my youngest brother is 13 years younger than me. And I was just always the one of our friends and our siblings who was the leader and the teacher and sometimes literally the teacher. Whenever I got everyone to play school with me, I was always the teacher. One of my most memorable toys from childhood was a school set that I got, which was mostly just papers and assigning homework and like those kinds of things, a planner. And so even from the young age of 6 and 7, I loved just teaching and telling other people what to do, which is good and bad when you're 6, 7, and 8. So yeah, I kind of always leaned that way. School was a positive experience for me, although I, had positive and negative experiences. And I think that it came from a place of wanting to inspire kids the way that some teachers inspired me, but at the same time wanting to do better for kids when I thought of teachers who didn't do better for me.
And I think a lot of the listeners can relate to that story of I've always wanted to be a teacher. Maybe they've had impactful teachers throughout their life who inspired them to become educators. And then we have some listeners who want to become educators because they've had not so great teachers in their life. Let's talk about that first year in Northern Virginia. So you just graduated from college in May. You start your new teaching job in August, September. What did that look like for you? What were you feeling? What were you excited about? What were you nervous about? What went well? All the questions. I'm just going to throw them at you. What was that first year like?
Oh my gosh. That's a big box to unpack.
I know. Let's take it out one at a time. You like to pack, so I feel let's unpack together.
Sure. I was excited to start teaching. I had student taught in the fall and it went well. So I hadn't student taught. It wasn't like I was just coming off of student teaching before I went into my own classroom. I had a semester as a student, and then now I was about to be the teacher. What I was most nervous about was, I thought at the time it was kind of like, I have no oversight. Like when you student teach, you have a co-op and a mentor and your supervisor. But when you teach, it's just you. Like, what if my kids aren't doing well? What if I'm not tracking? And I didn't even know what I didn't know, but I was nervous about all the independence that I thought I was going to have, which I did have to a degree. And so I was really nervous about that aspect. I was really excited about having new kids and getting to know them and find out their strengths and how they learn and what they learn. I knew I was going to have a really unique classroom. All of my students except one were ESOL students, which is English as a second language. It's the Virginia version of that. But the degrees to which they could speak or read or communicate in English varied. So of those, 18 students who were technically ESOL students, I would say the vast majority of them spoke English perfectly fine, were able to communicate, didn't have a problem in that. And I did have a lot of support from my ESOL teacher who I co-taught with. So she was really helpful and helping me know strategies to reach them because of those. But overall, it's not like I had to teach in another language, but it did lead to specific challenges with learning how to read, which, really important in first grade, and writing and kind of the nuances of our language that a kid who hears it at home and hears it all the time might pick up on, but someone who hears another language at home might not understand. So I knew that I was going to have a unique classroom, but I didn't necessarily know what it would look like. I think I was more excited. I was excited about the things that I had envisioned and built up for myself. And I was nervous about the things, kind of like the boogeyman in the closet. But ultimately, I feel like none of my expectations were right, either positive and negative, were not, I don't want to say all wrong. There were positives and there were negatives, but the things that I thought would be positives were actually really hard. And the things that I thought would be negatives were actually really encouraging and really helped me grow. And especially when I got to the end of the year, after a very difficult year, I saw a lot of those negatives as positives because they helped me grow so much. And I still saw those positives as positives.
Let's go back to that, first day in September or August when you start your first day of school as the teacher. And like you said, there's no supervisor, there's college supervisor, there's no mentor teacher or no cooperating teacher. You are that sole teacher in the classroom. I think a lot of new teachers feel that way. As soon as they get out of college, they get their job. Where's their support system? And I would recommend having a professional learning network to help support them in that first year. I know you're really involved in the new teachers to Twitter chat. What do you see going on for new teachers in that space of finding that PLN? How can it help support them as they're, getting their first few months under them?
I think in the area that I taught, so in Northern Virginia, it is one of the biggest magnet areas in the country for first-year teachers. They have a lot of mentor support in place. They have mentor programs and mentor sub-programs and mentor and first-year teacher professional development that are required. So that's one place to kind of find a PLN. And you need almost two parts of that. You need your fellow first-year teachers that you can be like, how's it going for you? And so you don't feel alone in the struggles that you're having. But then you also need the teachers that are more experienced that can tell you, hey, here's how you can help. Because, you don't want the blind leading the blind, but you do want someone who helps you feel not alone. I don't feel like there was a big push to Twitter at all. I already knew about Twitter. There was this professor I had in college who was really big on Twitter. And so I was glad that I already had my established PLN there through NT2T. And that was where I found a lot of encouragement when I was struggling. I'd already built a reputation there as a teacher of excellence in the things that I wanted to do, because a lot of times we have those dreams and goals, but then we just struggle to implement them or to survive for the beginning of the school year. And so it was encouraging to have people tell me, I don't know how your school day went, but I know that you did your best. And I know that you want the best for your students because I've known you long enough to know that that is what you have in your heart. that online PLN, establishing it in college was so helpful to already have those friends that some of whom I've never met and probably never will because they live all around the world, and already have that relationship with them.
Now, I know we just wrote a book with Katie Gibson and Hannah Sansom that is working to encourage, support, and motivate those new teachers. And you are an awesome co-author on that project. Can you share a little bit about your favorite part of the book and why you needed to get that message out there for new teachers?
So, okay, first I'll do why. The idea for the book was born when you and I were hanging out, and I said, Sam, I feel like I need to write a book, but I don't know what about. My only education experience is the first year. And you were like, well, there you go. I had a really hard first year. Physical challenges, emotional challenges, education challenges, all kinds of challenges that first year. And I left with a sour taste in my mouth. I think that when you and I came up with this idea, it was still very fresh too. It's easier to sit back 3 years later and say, I grew a lot. And it was positive because it grew me and brought me to where I am now. But I remember thinking, I went into that school year being like, I'm going to be a rock star. Everybody tells me how great of a teacher I'm going to be. And, I don't think I'm going to crush it on day one, but, I have all these by week 2. No, but I had all these grand plans of how I was going to integrate technology. But I went in with all these plans, and then it just crumbled. And I was surviving day to day, and my students weren't learning. They weren't growing. And the data showed that they weren't, specifically in reading. That was another reason why I became a teacher, was because I wanted to teach kids to love reading as much as I did. And so when my students were struggling to read, that was so personal to me that I felt like I had failed in the one area that I wanted to be able to teach in. So after such a hard year, going in on fire and then coming out barely a flickering flame, I felt like I wanted to prepare other people to go in, to recognize that if things go wrong, it will be okay. And if you come out on the other side, a barely flickering flame, it was worth it. It was worth it to go through whatever you went through because you grew. And so that's the why I felt like that demographic needed to be reached. I think that my favorite part of the book is that we have a lot of our personal experiences because the 4 of us have very different experiences. So I only taught for the first year. Katie Gibson taught, I have to remember her experience. I think she taught for the first year, but then she left, or she was a sub. She was very transient for a time. And Hannah Sansom taught for her first year, and here she is year 3, same place, same thing, and got her master's in there too. So we're all 3, and then your first year is a long time ago.
Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much.
And so I feel like all of our paths have been so different, but you offer the perspective of down the road looking back, and in some ways, we're still in the thick of it. So yeah, I think that it's good that it has all of our unique perspectives. Every chapter really, as I look through it, every chapter just has such a different, but such an important part of that first year. So first we start with talking about expectations and disappointment and how it's not all going to be sunshine and roses. And especially in the disappointment chapter, honestly, that's the one that's probably the closest to my heart because I had a lot of disappointment that first year. But then moving on to just be encouraged, you're unstoppable. You will make it through. I hope, and we hope, we've talked about this, that this book is an encouragement, but in some ways it prepares you for things maybe you didn't think about because we have thought about them having gone through it, but also that it encourages you in the thick of it. That's why we shot for a November release, because that's the hardest month. You haven't had a break. You're about to get your first long break. And so I really want this book to be an encouragement for teachers who are feeling that slump, that it will get better. But even if it doesn't get better this month or this quarter, or even by the end of this school year, that you will be better because of it. Mm-hmm. And it will get better, whether it means staying at your school, leaving your school, changing your whole area. In teaching first grade, I thought was my dream job. But now that I have a toddler, I'm realizing that early childhood is my passion. you will be better and it will be okay no matter what it looks like at the end of your first year.
I like the parts in the book where the readers can reflect and journal. And it's a really nice way to have a conversation, and be able to reflect on those moments and reflect on strategies and your own practice. And that's one of my favorite parts of the book, just the different way that it's set up, as it's not just we're going to tell you all of our stories, but it's also a place for you to jot down your ideas and your reflections on the day, on the week, on the semester, on a lesson.
That it is that conversation that we have. I wish I'd had this book my first year teaching. Having it all organized in one place, we have stories, but we also have a lot of practical things of so in the getting ready section or chapter is literally checklists and QR code resources and boxes to write things down in. And just all feels like it's in one spot to go through and get ready for and interact with for yourself, interact with us as the writers, but interact with yourself as the reader and as the one recording and writing in the book. I totally agree with you.
And I think you're a big proponent of having that piece in there. Just that reflection piece is really powerful.
Yes. Oh my goodness. My sister for Christmas before I started teaching, she got me a notebook that was just it was so cute and I loved it so much. And so I didn't want to write in it because I didn't want to waste it. And so I wanted to save it for those kind of big moments of deep reflection. But now I so regret that. I wish I'd even just written a sentence in it every day. At the end of the day, today was really hard because, today was really good because, or one pro, one con, one place of growth and one place of encouragement. I wish, even if it was a word, I wish that I had that reflection daily instead of waiting for those big moments, because you don't know when something is a big moment until later and too much later to remember it.
I agree. I wish I had the same thing during my first year teaching, but we're going to switch gears a little bit. So for our seniors who are graduating from college, maybe in December or May, and they're beginning their first year teaching, what piece of advice do you have for them?
You can do it. You have gotten this far for a reason. You don't graduate as an education major unprepared to teach. You will need to gain experience to learn how to teach well, but you have a foundation and you need to trust that. One of our focus group readers said that your education teaches you, gives you the tools, but your experience teaches you how to wield them, how to use them. You have the tools that you need, but you're going to learn how to use them, because you don't want to use a hammer to screw in a screw, and you don't want to use a paintbrush as a hammer. And so you have those tools in your toolbox, and you're probably going to use them wrong at first. You just are, because you don't know. Exactly. And so, but as time goes on, you'll hammer nails and you'll use screwdrivers for screws and you'll use paintbrushes to paint, and you'll learn even those finer tools. You'll put more tools in your toolbox and you'll learn how to use them effectively. So I really loved that metaphor that you have the tools, but experience will teach you how to use them.
I love that too. And I think that's a great piece of advice for teachers who are in their first year. Maybe they're in their third month or fourth month teaching, students who are just graduating and getting jobs in May or December. Thank you so much, Hannah. All right. So the book is coming out in November, and we have teachers who are in their fourth month teaching. They're just about to get their long break, like you said. What do you hope they get out of this book?
I hope that they feel refreshed and encouraged after reading it. I hope that they kind of the flow of the book, the way that we made it on purpose, was that we kind of start with here's a dose of reality, and then we turned it into, but it's okay. And so I hope that they start this book and they go, wow, yes, this is it. This is how I feel. I'm not alone. And then they keep reading and they say, oh, well, if I wasn't alone for the first half, I guess that my story could turn out like this too. And so they realize that there is hope. There is that you read this and first you feel seen and known, and then you feel encouraged.
I know my listeners will want to get in touch with you. How can they find you online?
So on Twitter, I'm at HTurk139. I am usually online 9 a.m. Eastern for #NT2T Twitter chat. I always will plug that. Those are my people.
Well, thank you so much for your time today, Hannah. And I look forward to the book release. And I know all my listeners will too. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. I loved it.
All right, friends, there you have it. Look for Edumagic Shine On coming to a bookstore in Amazon near you at the end of November. Keep in touch and have a fabulous week. You have the Edumagic within you.
And there you have it, EduMagicians. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with your friends. For more EduMagic, check out sfessage.com and follow Dr. Sam on Twitter and Instagram @sfessage. Until next time, you have the EduMagic within you.